I don't think I ever had a company like yours on the podcast.
We are a manufacturer's rep for commercial HVAC equipment. Whenever you design a piece of equipment that has a motor on it, the motor is operating at full speed, full load.
All the time.
But you don't necessarily need it to. So we represent manufacturers throughout the country.
If I borrow money and it's going to help me make more money, that's probably good debt.
It's 100% good debt.
Holy cow, man. Nobody's doing this, you know?
I always say I use my powers for good.
Listen up, America. This is the American Made Podcast, the show that highlights America's business leaders and experts in all aspects of the manufacturing industry. If it's made in America, you'll find it here.
China. Made in America. Products made with American heart, American sweat.
Now, your host of the American Made Podcast, Jason J. Webb.
What's up, America? With me today is Rob Grady with Mulcahy. He's the president. How you doing, Rob?
I'm great, Jason. How are you doing?
Good. A little technical difficulty, but we got to figure it out. You know, when in doubt with anything electronic, just turn it off and turn it back on, right?
Yep. IT 101.
Yeah. So my boys love their computers and playing Fortnite and that type of thing. And I've taught them well. They always come upstairs and be like, Dad, there's something wrong with my computer. My first response is, well, did you turn it off and turn it back on? Oh, yeah. And it's amazing. Like, now they hardly ever come upstairs and tell me something's wrong with their computer, because that typically fixes it.
You know, I miss the days when you used to blow into the cartridge in Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
To reset it, to get it to work.
Yeah, Mario Brothers.
Exactly.
Yeah. And did you play Zelda?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I remember when I was like in 9th grade, I had that Nintendo system, and I went downstairs on a Sunday and during the summer, so there's school's out of session, and it was light outside. You know, I went down there, first ate my cereal, went downstairs, put Zelda in, and then I looked outside, and it was dark out, and I was so disgusted with myself, dude. I packed up all that shit. I put all my complete system, all my games in a box, and I told my mom, and I'm like, just get rid of this. Like, I'm an addict, and I admit it. That's the first part of recovery.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
Admitting you have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and now have you tried video games lately with all the systems like PlayStation and?
I have a PS5. My son's a big gamer. He's now a freshman in college, but I bought it at my apartment so that he could play with me too. And the games are intense. I can't even.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's
I
like
can't
you're in
play
a movie
it without him. He has to ttell me what to do. Which I used to be a huge gamer.
Yeah, even to get the dang game started, like the menus and the options.
That much I can get done.
Oh, okay. See, I don't even get past that part. But yeah, it's like you're in a movie. The graphics are amazing. Yeah. All right, Mulcahy. You said that's Irish.
I believe so.
All right, and
it's over 90 years since Mulcahy was founded.
90.
1929.
Holy cow! And let's get into Mulcahy. So first of all, what is it that you guys do?
We are a manufacturer's rep for commercial HVAC equipment. So we represent manufacturers throughout the country to sell equipment to mechanical contractors primarily for installation into buildings. And it's mostly radiant floor systems. So tubes in the floor. We sell boilers and pumps. Those are the kind of the hearts of the machine or of the system to heat a building.
So are you selling directly to the contractor or to, no?
Most of the time, yes.
Yeah, okay.
The contractor will bid a job from it's designed by an engineer or an architect that's hired by a building owner. We sell them the equipment to install into the building.
Okay. All right. And it's typically radiant floor heat?
Typically. We are expanding into air applications, which is more common. Okay. Rooftop units, chillers. That's a new segment for us. It's about a year since we've really dug into it.
All right. So did you say that you actually manufacture the materials, or you're just a distributor?
We are primarily, I guess, so we sell through distribution as well, but we represent manufacturers. They build the products, we sell them.
Okay.
There are some exceptions. We do some fabrication in our facility to build custom pumps for applications.
All right. HVAC stuff mainly.
Yes.
Yeah, so I don't have a whole lot of experience in radiant floor heat. I always thought it was a good idea. I never did a new construction build for a residential house ever. But everybody that I have talked to that has installed like radiant heat in their basement, for instance, they're like, it's the greatest thing ever.
It is the most efficient way to heat a building, and it's fantastic. You get even heat. Yeah. It's really the way to go if you can pull it off.
Yeah. You know, I retiled a bathroom once downstairs, and we did the electrical cord underneath the tile. It worked fine, but I'm sure it's not as good.
No, there you're just heating your feet. You're not heating the room.
Well, it felt good on my feet.
Exactly. That's what you're doing there.
All right. So what's the history? How did Mulcahy get its start?
They're the primary manufacturer, the biggest manufacturer that Mulcahy represents is called Xylem. They've had iterations throughout the history, but in 1990, they represented the primary brand of the Xylem family is Bell & Gossett. So it's a pump manufacturer. And that's how they started back in 1929. Ran that way for the most part until the 80s. And then in the 80s, they started to build the portfolio into boilers and other auxiliary components. So more of the system, less of just the pumps. There might be some additional history there, but it's lost to the annals of time. So that's what's really been building the business for the last, I'll say from the mid 80s up until the middle, let's say 2015, 16. And throughout that history, then more manufacturers were added to the line card. We represent a little over 30 manufacturers. I think it's close to 40 now. And we can combine all of those different manufacturers' equipment into a package to sell to a contractor.
Cool. And out of those 30 manufacturers that you represent, most of them are around the whole radiant floor. I don't know if I'm using the correct term.
No, radiant's fine.
Yeah. What did you say?
Hydronics is the technical term, but radiant is fine.
So most of those 30 are those manufacturers that you represent are part of that radiant floor heating system.
For the most part.
But you're expanding into other areas now. Yeah.
We sell something, the manufacturer is ABB. They sell something called a variable frequency drive, or a VFD. It's like a dimmer switch for a motor. And that is used in our pumping systems, but can be used in anything that has a motor.
Okay.
And the idea there is whenever you design a piece of equipment that has a motor on it, it's designed, the motor is operating at full speed, full load.
All the time.
But you don't necessarily need it to.
Okay.
So to create efficiencies, and XL Energy has done a great job of introducing rebates for this. You can add a VFD to just about any motor, run it at the ideal condition, which is usually less than full load, get some energy savings and some cost savings by extension.
So is that device applied to radiant floor heat too?
It can be applied to anything with the motor. Radiant, air. In my previous life, I sold industrial capital equipment, and we used variable frequency drives on that too.
Okay. Cool.
Anything with the motor.
So how long have you been in this position as the president?
As president and CEO, 3 years.
Yeah?
Yes.
And were you working there prior to that? Were
Yes.
you promoted within?
I started in the end of 2014, so I've been there just about 9 years now. I started as the VP of Sales and Marketing, moved into a role of Executive Vice President in 2016. And then when we went to an ESOP from a private ownership structure, that's when I became president.
Gotcha. So you must be doing all right. They must be pleased with Rob's performance. So with this ESOP, so it's employee owned. I know it stands for something, employee something. So do you feel like that transition going into an ESOP has been a positive thing?
It has.
Yeah.
It's still, for us, it's still in its infancy. We went to an ESOP at the beginning of 2020. And so we've had 3 full plan years is what they're called. We're finishing up our 4th. It's been great because there's been a change in leadership that's allowed us to really empower the employees to do their best work. That's what I love to do, is to help them do that. But there's also the idea that now that they're owners and what they do literally matters, it impacts the bottom line, which impacts the share value, which impacts their retirement accounts. it's really created some engagement, some improved engagement from the team, which they were already engaged, but now they get to have a little bit more of a onus on what they're doing.
Yeah. With an ESOP, do they get profit sharing every year, or is it like you said it contributes to their retirement? Is that right?
We have both, but an ESOP is every year you get shares. The way it's regulated by the Department of Labor.
Okay.
And the way it works is you get shares as a percentage of your income to the entire income pool.
Okay.
So in a given year, the example I give is if in a given year, let's say there's 100 shares, and the total pool of income is $1 million, and you make 100,000, you're going to get 10% of the available shares in that plan year.
Okay.
And then based on the performance, I get grilled every year about where the company's going and what's happened in the previous year. All of that factors into the valuation that happens on an annual basis.
Okay.
And so from there, when you're done, once we're fully vested, you have all these shares. Whatever the price is the day you leave is what you get times the number of shares. That's it.
Gotcha.
It's an advantage for the business because it's we are no longer a taxable entity. The tax comes when on the W-2 for the employee when they cash out. But you can also roll them over into 401ks, I believe.
Okay.
Or IRAs, I should say.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So that's available to all employees that work there?
Oh, yeah.
How many employees you got?
We are at 68 today.
68.
And growing.
What do most of those 68 do? Or is most of them like salespeople?
About, I'd say a third of our team is sales, outside sales.
Okay.
Then there's inside sales, estimating, customer service, where the customer service group takes aftermarket calls, project management, accounting, and our warehouse staff.
And where's Mulcahy located?
In Eagan, Minnesota, not far from the Vikings training facility.
Yeah. Interesting. I don't think I've ever had a company like yours on the podcast. So for those young, ambitious men out there, how does somebody become a president of a company such as yours? Like, did you go to college?
I did twice.
Twice?
Yes.
Yeah. First time wasn't so
no,
good?
The first time was great. I got my Bachelor of Mechanical Engineering, and then that was in 2000. And then I went back and got my MBA in 2013.
Oh, MBA. All right. And so would you say that type of path as far as education is concerned would be a good path to become a president of a mid-sized company such as yours?
It's certainly a path. When I coach and mentor young people on the side, and when I do that, I try to identify what it is they're truly looking to do.
Yeah.
And so a lot of people will go back and get an MBA because that seems like the logical thing to catapult their career, but that doesn't translate all the time. In my case, I went and got my MBA because I was at the company I was with prior to this. I had been asked to join their management team after selling for about 7 years with them. And I could not read a financial statement. So for all of my math as an engineer, degreed engineer, and by the way, I've never engineered, I shouldn't say that. I've never been an engineer, like a real engineer. And a lot of people like to make fun of me for that, but I don't mind.
Yeah.
I've been in sales since I got out of engineering school. But I needed the MBA. I pursued it in order to gain more knowledge, in order to be more effective as a manager of a business. And that is where I think the education comes from. But leading a business, that tends to come from practical experience. And it also comes from a certain mindset about how you approach business and people.
Yeah. Yeah, financial statements are confusing. I mean, the P&L statement makes more sense to me than a balance sheet, and try to make things balance on a balance sheet. I mean, personal net worth statements where I list like my debits on one side and my assets on another side, my liabilities and assets, that makes sense to me. But when I start looking at like these more complicated balance sheets and how to make these things balance on general ledger statements, and I'm like, I just completed something through Goldman Sachs called 10,000 Small Businesses. Have you ever heard of that?
I haven't.
It's pretty intense, man. And part of that was training on how to read financial statements. And I still don't. I mean, I still don't get it. I felt like the more I was learning, the more I was discovering I don't know anything. And then it just became more confusing. It's more than just a balance sheet and a P&L, right? It's all these complicated formulas and metrics you can track. And I don't know. Sometimes I'll watch a YouTube video when I have a question, but.
Yeah. Public companies especially can get really into the weeds in that regard. And in grad school, we went very deep. It was like an advanced Excel class. But the reality is that in terms of what I do, the income statement is what matters most. Tracking revenue, we do that on a monthly basis. Of course, I just got ours yesterday to see where we're at in terms of what we budgeted for the year and how we're doing with that budget, both in terms of top line, which is revenue or sales, and then bottom line, which is our net income or net profit, and everything in between. So if we budgeted for adding, say, 5 staff, but we don't have the revenue and the profit to support it, now I have to take a hard look and decide what's up. Balance sheets, I rarely look at those. Balance sheets only really matter if you have a lot of, well, you mentioned it. You said you put your assets in one column and liabilities in another. That is a balance sheet.
Yeah.
Here's what I have. Here's what I owe. That's the document.
Here's my net worth.
Yeah. In our case, our balance sheet is almost entirely made up of our inventory, which is an asset, and then accounts receivable and accounts payable, which in any given moment can be an asset and a liability, respectively. Otherwise, it doesn't really. In our business, the balance sheet doesn't matter. We don't own property. We don't have facilities throughout the country or the world. We don't have a ton of loans. We do have some loans as a result of the buyout for the ESOP from the former owners. But that's where that ends. The income statement is what matters.
So I think it was like probably 3 years ago now. Yeah. I realized I was $1 million in debt. And, I had a big lake house. And that was, I owed $700 on that and student loans still. And I had a commercial building I was part owner in. I had a truck payment. I don't know. And I had a coming to Jesus moment, and good or bad, right? So I'm like, I can't rest easy knowing I have $1 million in debt. And so I started selling everything.
Okay.
I sold the snowmobiles. I sold the Harley. I sold the commercial building. I sold the lake house. I sold it all, bro. And I made a bunch of money on the lake house because it appreciated.
Yep. Then
I bought a normal house, remodeled it, still debt free. And now, I don't know. I don't know what my view is on debt. I believe there's good and bad debt, right?
There is.
I feel like if I borrow money and it's going to help me make more money, that's probably good debt.
It's 100% good debt.
Yeah.
For sure.
All right.
Yep. So anything that appreciates, any asset, that's good debt. So usually a house is the most common example, even that commercial property. Anything that depreciates and you can't recover what you're paying, like a car or a snowmobile, that tends to, or credit card debt is the worst, of course. You spend. You're paying terrible interest rates on a credit card. That's bad debt for sure. But it's also the idea behind evaluating whether or not to take on that debt, and we do this as a business, is based on the interest rates. Interest rates are high now, so it is less lucrative for us to use our line of credit or loans to invest on something that is still appreciating but may appreciate slower because the rate of return is reduced by the higher interest rate.
Sure. What's your opinion on buying a car versus leasing a car?
I hate both because they're both bad debt. I'm on the camp of buying a car because I hate bad debt. I will buy a car and essentially drive it into the ground, or most of the time I own a car for 8 to 10 years. You get it paid off, and now you don't have that debt anymore, and you still have that vehicle.
Yeah.
Leasing is something that I have never explored in my view of it, based on my observations, is it's for people who want a new car every 3 or 4 years. I don't know what the financials look like. I expect that it's not as great as buying a car because I think you pay more. I'm just speculating.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, you get rid of that car before it starts to get into problems. You get rid of the car before the warranty expires.
Yeah.
And so the cost of ownership after the fact, even if you're out of the debt, is eliminated by that because you haven't had to pay for anything to get it fixed. You turn it over and you get a new car.
Yeah. All right. That's cool. So where are you from originally?
I'm from here. I grew up mostly in Apple Valley.
Okay.
Yep.
What was childhood like? Did you play sports? You got siblings?
I do have 2 siblings. Well, in order, I play sports. I played football. I played football from about 6th grade on.
Yeah.
I was playing soccer for a little bit, but my build was not designed for soccer, even as a defenseman. So I played football. I went to school, high school at St. Thomas Academy. My grandfather was there, and he graduated in 51, and my brother and I were sort of destined to do it as a result.
Yeah. Did your dad go there too?
No. My dad went to Minneapolis North, I believe.
Okay.
And my mom was Holy Angels.
Nice.
So yeah, I played football. A wrestler. Took the spring off, but I was an offensive lineman. I loved it. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guard or
no tackle? Offensive tackle. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't have enough speed to be a guard. They put me in guard. I lost a bunch of weight one year. And when I went to pull, it doesn't work.
Oh.
You got to get out there before the running back, and I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did you play any sports in college?
I didn't.
No. Okay.
I thought about it. I got recruited by a couple of schools, not D1. One was D2, a few D3s, but I really wanted to focus on my education and getting out of there.
Sure.
And with a mechanical engineering mindset, the course load, in my opinion, and this was just for me, I felt like if I played a sport, I would have a tough time getting out in 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't do that.
Yeah, football was my life back in high school, and I was a decent player, and I was planning on playing college ball. And the third game of my senior year, wrecked my knee.
Oh.
Game over, and I never came back the rest of the season. So, it's crushing in the sense it's something you've been doing, for the last 5-6 years or whatever, and it was kind of like your life. Like even in the off season, I was always training and running track, and I ran. Dude, I hated track, but I did it for football. You know what I mean? And then when everything comes crashing down, but then, you try to find that silver lining. I'm like, this must have happened for a reason. And, I would have gone to probably like something like St. Cloud State, played football, and then partied my ass right out of there, and wouldn't have amounted to anything anyway. I wasn't going to go to the NFL or anything.
Yeah.
And so, I don't know. I felt like it happened for a reason, Yep. You still work out?
Yeah, I do. Well, I've gotten back into a routine. My running days are over. I was a triathlete and did a couple marathons back in the first part of the century, 2000, let's say 5 to 10.
Yeah.
But
marathons.
Yeah, Twin Cities.
Yeah. Again, you're not really built for marathons, are you?
No, I'm not. But it was something to try. It's check the box, accomplish it. But no, I'm not built to run. Even though my stride helps me get some speed. But
okay,
I like to. Right now, my favorite thing is to bike. I've got a fat bike. I ride it year round. I got studs for the winter.
Oh, that's
separate
cool.
tires for the summer.
Yeah.
I love being outdoors. It's my favorite thing.
Yeah. Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
All right, so back to Mulcahy on their website here. I got it in front of me. If you're on YouTube, you can check this out. Is there anything is who we are, what we offer, manufacturers, education, contact? If you want to check out their website, it's Mulcahy, and let me spell it for you, MULCAHYCO, Mulcahy Co, as in company.com. So is there anything interesting on here that you want me to click on?
Well, the thing I'm most proud of is the who we are part.
The who we are.
Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
In terms of what our culture, which is, as a leader, culture to me is the most important thing to the success of a business.
These are your core values here?
They are.
Yeah.
And they're in order. It should be honesty and integrity, team and community driven, commitment to growth, passion for sharing experience,
efficient solutions, have fun.
Solutions, and have fun. Yeah, I do have them memorized, and they reflect mine as it turns out. So I like that.
Are you familiar with the book Traction and the EOS management process?
This is where that came from.
Yeah?
Yeah, we went through, my management team and I went through the exercise of building our core values through Traction and EOS.
Yeah.
We have a VTO We're traction light, so we don't do. We're implementing some scorecards. We do L10s, not regularly, but it really works for us. It's a great way to communicate.
Yeah, that book makes a lot of sense.
It does.
I think I've read it 4 times.
Geo
I got
Wickman.
a VTO also for myself.
I'm in a peer group called Vistage. It's a global group.
Yep, I've heard of it.
And they have different levels. I'm in the CEO group. And when I first joined about 2 years ago, a little over 2 years ago, I had never heard of traction or EOS, and that was all anybody talked about. I'm like, all right, I got to check this out. And it was really cool. I really like the exercise of establishing core values because it focuses on the people, which is my favorite thing. And you draw out from those key people. Cultural spark plugs is another way to look at them. But what the attributes that make them so special. And that's how we created that list. That's the exercise that Traction uses. And I really like that.
Yeah. Now, I think it's you. Aren't you writing a book?
Yes.
And it's all about leadership.
It is. It is a little bit more than that, actually. When we spoke, it was all about leadership, or at least so I thought. I had not reread my first draft, which I submitted around the 4th of July. It became something more. So originally, I was interviewed by somebody I'm mentoring and a very good friend, Alyssa. She's starting she's a massage therapist, and she has this vision to build this holistic, retreat center that takes care, that is about healing. And
so people go stay there overnight and
well,
stuff?
She's not there yet. She just got her first studio, but that's what she's looking for.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
And so I've been mentoring her through that journey, and she interviewed me for her leadership class. And she asked me 2 questions that gave me pause. And one was, are leaders born? And the other was, can leadership be taught? And that was the genesis for something I've always wanted to do, which was write a book. That was back in January. And so I started the book that way. And the working title was called Curious Leadership. It's about asking questions to be a better leader, which is a critical component of being a better leader. But it became more about personal value. And so identifying personal value in yourself, identifying in others, and then using that value and your purpose to be a leader in whatever it is you're doing. So you don't have to necessarily be managing people, for example, to be a leader. And so now the book title is You Are the Key, Understanding Personal Value and Leading the Way. It's now locked in. That's official. I had to submit that a few weeks ago.
All right. When's it going to be available on Amazon?
It will be published in March, if all goes well. And so far, I'm halfway point of revisions, week 8 of 16. And I just met with my editor yesterday, and things are going great.
Got an idea for book number 2?
What I tell people, Jason, is I'd like to get through this one first, please.
Yeah, right.
It is quite the process, but the structure of my book, and in fact, I had a beta reader, a friend of mine, read it for me. She helped me with the title, actually.
What? A beta reader?
Yeah. So What?
Is that somebody that's kind of like submissive and meek? Not alpha, but beta?
No. No, it's not. Think of a beta tester for something.
Yeah, beta version.
Like a beta. Your sons, I'm sure, have wanted to get their hands on a beta test for a new video game. I know my son wants to do that. He does it all the time. But a beta reader is somebody who is looking at the raw, not quite finished manuscript and offering their opinion.
Okay.
And when I shared it with her, she read it. She goes, you know what, Rob? I had just gone on a hiking trip, and a lot of people in my office were concerned that I was going hiking alone in the mountains of Vermont, New Hampshire. So I brought my compass. I'm an Eagle Scout, so I brought my compass. I brought my big buck knife, and I laid it all and took a picture. And I showed some of those people. I'm like, listen, I'll be okay. Yeah. By the way, I didn't need them because there's a lot of people, and there were no animals. But what she said to me was, she said, you know, you showed me that picture of that buck knife when you were out in New Hampshire. In Vermont. And that's kind of what I wanted from this book. Instead, you've given, the way you've written it is like this multi-tool, almost like a Swiss Army knife. And I said, Andrea, that's great, because that's exactly what I'm looking for. The book is 15 chapters right now, and all 15 kind of focus on a different subject. So that's the long-winded way of answering your question, which is to say that, and I'll include this in my introduction, I could probably write a whole book on each of those chapters.
Okay.
But the idea here is that there's so much literature out there, so many books about leadership and identifying value. And as I mentor these young people, I realize they just need a place to start. This book is designed to be that place to start. It's not going to have all the answers. Even if I had all the answers, I don't think I could put it on the book, but I do not have all the answers. It's designed to be that stepping stone. So you can go find another book. Okay, I want more on this, and here's some recommendations.
Yeah. So I wrote a book also. It's on the top shelf over there, Your Company's Guide to Workers' Comp Insurance. And, I help companies with all their insurance, but I feel like work comp is a good place to start simply because for a lot of companies, it's like 50 to 70% of their total insurance premium. It's just a really expensive policy. So by fixing some things on the work comp policy, well, then we can have a pretty quick impact on their bottom line as far as profitability. And I found what I've discovered is that a lot of companies that have, 50 to 200 employees, they need a full-time in-house risk manager to help them, I guess, come up with a plan on how to prevent claims from happening in the first place. But they don't. So then they lean on their insurance agent or their insurance company, which they get so-so results. But they can't justify, the company has a hard time justifying hiring a full-time risk manager because they're just not at that point yet. So then it's like a fractional risk manager would be a good spot for them, right? And that's kind of my approach to insurance. It's not just transferring the risk over to the insurance company and letting them handle it if something goes wrong.
Yeah.
It's, okay, what can we do to prevent these claims from happening in the first place? There's a process to this. And let's plug in the process. And I call it risk assurance, a play on words, so risk management and insurance, right? And for work comp insurance, just to give you an idea, I kind of follow the acronym PIP, People Injury Policy. So under people, we address like the hiring process, because if you hire the wrong people, it's going to be a problem.
Yes.
Travelers Insurance did a study where they discovered that's like, I think it was 34% of all work comp claims occur within the first 12 months of employment.
Okay.
So they're probably hiring the wrong people. So let's get that squared away.
Or the training isn't right. But
yeah, the onboarding. Yep.
Yeah.
So the next part under people is training, safety training, right? And then, so that takes care of the people component. And then the injury, if you have an injury, you got to know how to respond to it.
Yep.
And then you got to know how to get these claims closed. Because these claims adjusters, they have between, they say, 100 to 200 open claims on their desk at any one time. So your claims get lost in the shuffle. So you got to play an active role in getting these things closed. And then the last piece of PIP, so People Injury Policy, under policy is coverages. You don't want to have a denied claim. Right. So we got to make sure that's squared away. And then pricing. Having a pricing strategy. I mean, a lot of companies, I feel like they drop the ball by just going out and getting quotes every 3 years and having no strategy behind it. If you focus on three things under pricing for work comp, it's the multiplier, your mod, and your credit, right? And just to touch on the credit, work comp underwriters in Minnesota are authorized to give up to a 40% credit on your work comp or up to a 25% debit. That's a 65% price swing. So having a strategy to know, how do I negotiate best with these underwriters and what are they looking for? And how do I paint the picture of the company in a way that the underwriters are going to max out the credit? Huge swing in price.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So there's a lot to it, man. It's like anything. The deeper you dive into any topic, it's like, holy cow, man, nobody's doing this,
It's when I was listening to you talk, it reminded me of what you were saying about the balance sheet and the income statement and P&L. There's so many layers upon layers of these things. We see what's on the surface. Here's our deductible. Here's our coverage. Here's what our premium is. But there's so much more to almost everything you're looking at.
Yeah. I see mistakes all the time. One of my clients, they had been working in South Dakota, Wisconsin, and Iowa for 7 years with no coverage in those states. So, like, for the listeners, if you look at your work comp policy under Section 3A, any state that you're located in, that your employees live in, that you work in, or that you plan on working in the next 12 months should be listed under Section 3A. And That's probably the biggest mistake I see in a work comp policy.
That's good to know because we're expanding into Iowa, and I don't handle the insurance. The VP of Finance, Russ, does.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
All of it.
Yeah.
I'm not a fan.
Yeah, it's a pain. It's a pain. Like, who the heck wants to deal with that? It's a worry. Like, nobody wants to deal with. It's a hassle. It's confusing. It's frustrating. It's all of that. I mean, most business owners or presidents, they just want to do what they enjoy. Like, who the hell enjoys this? Like,
not it. Not it. And there's two things I hate. It relates to like a task in my job. Well, not tasks. Everybody in my office knows that I can't stand paper. I hate it.
Yeah.
Hate. For my 40th birthday, they literally took a bunch of scrap paper and completely papered my office. Wall to ceiling.
Nice.
Or floor to ceiling.
Happy birthday.
Walls, all my furniture just covered in paper. It was hilarious. And Russ, VP of Finance, knows that I can't stand insurance, and so does Beth, the former HR person who's still there. She's just in accounting now, accounting manager. He walked into my office yesterday and he laid down a piece of paper with insurance. I said, Russ, do you just want to shut the conversation down right now? I can't even touch this. Get it off my desk. So we were going through it. And then I said, hey, I'd like to see it a different way. And he says, okay. And he starts to walk away. I said, Russ, you can take these. Please take these.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't leave your trash behind.
Yeah. So insurance is necessary. We have several policies, EPLI, obviously healthcare, dental, workers' comp, all of those. Yeah. And they're all important. I like the idea that what you said about risk management, because in anything we're doing, if you can prevent something and be prepared for it, that you're going to be in better shape than if you wait around until an event happens.
For sure. For sure. An ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure, right? Benjamin Franklin.
Nice.
So you brought it up, and I just want to touch on it, and it might help the listeners. EPLI, Employment Practice Liability Insurance, right? Yeah. So the most common claims for EPLI might be wrongful termination, sexual harassment, retaliation, Now, whether the employee comes to you with a legitimate claim or not, they could just be making it up because they're pissed off. Whatever. The cost of defense on average. So they make a claim, oh, so-and-so sexually harassed me. Now you got to go to your EPLI insurance and you got to notify them. Claims opened up. They might lawyer up. Now we're going to court. Even if it's total BS, the average cost of defense for an EPLI claim is $125,000. Right? Then if there's a settlement, the average settlement is $80,000. So that's $205,000. And a lot of companies don't even have EPLI insurance. It's scary. Now, here's a hack. If you have an employee manual, which I'm sure you do, I would recommend to have your EPLI insurance company's legal department review your employee manual because they have a vested interest, right? The two go hand in hand. If something's not right in your employee manual that comes back and bites you, that's an EPLI claim, potentially.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So if you send it over to your carrier, the legal department say, hey, look at our employee manual, give us some suggestions of what we should change or update. And they typically do it free of charge. No charge. So anyway.
Well, we do it. So we have two services that we use to review our manual. We are with ADP Workforce Now, including the HR module of that. So we've always used them for our comp, for payroll. But we ramped that up, and we have a person that will review our manual, and they have. The other one we do, and I've just reached out to her, is we have an employment attorney, Jessica Rowe, at Rowe Law, and I sent her some language because with the new laws that have come out in Minnesota, as it relates to sick leave and some of the other things, I want to make sure that those are accurate. We don't have to worry about the laws because we're already compliant, but there are some components that are kind of a pain in the ass that we have to make sure we cover.
Yeah. It's complicated.
So that's how we
stuff.
do it. We use our employment attorney and ADP.
Yeah. And ADP, I mean, I know other companies out there use ADPs for their payroll, and they're like, oh, we're going to put the comp there because, I mean, comp is dependent on how much you pay, and then you can pay as you go, right, every month. Just so you know, and everybody else knows, what that pay as you go option, it's cool. and it's cool that ADP offers it. But most insurance companies, regardless of who you use for your payroll, also offers it. So let's say AmTrust is the insurance company. Well, they have a plugin with ADP in which the reporting goes straight to AmTrust, and then AmTrust calculates your work comp premium that month. It's all automated. But even if they don't have like a relationship with ADP, the pay-as-you-go option, I think pretty much every work comp insurance company offers that now. It might be at the end of the month, you log in and you into the portal and you enter in the payroll for that previous month, and then it calculates, okay, you owe this much. You click pay, and it's all electronic and it's paid too. So don't feel like you have to be tied to ADP, with the work comp.
Yep.
And because most insurance companies do offer it.
I don't even know if ADP is who we have work comp through.
Yeah. They usually have relationships with carriers. I think Hartford is a common one that they have a relationship with. Okay. So they have agents with ADP that place the insurance with the Hartford. And so it's legit. But yeah, man. So leadership. My approach has always been not be a dictator leader. Ask my employees for their opinion in the sense, let's have a conversation on the best way to do this. And then let's all agree upon, then that's the best way to do it. And then everybody's going to do it that way. Right. And that seemed to go a long way with my employees. And it's a relatively simple thing to do. What other tools for leadership? Weekly meetings that helped clear expectations. I think about that with leadership. They typically have some kind of metric that's expected of them, KPIs. Yep. Any other leadership tips?
Allow them to fail.
Allow them to fail and not freak out.
Right. So and that comes from expectations. But I view failures, I'm using that term, loosely, failures. But when there's a problem, it's an opportunity for learning and growth. That is how a leader should approach those things. There are, of course, exceptions to that are extreme as it relates to whether or not a leader or, I should say, a manager has to take action, because there's a difference in my mind between managers and leaders. And you have to do certain things in that regard. But if there's a problem with, something was purchased incorrectly, let's just talk about it, see how we can make it right for the customer, and then see what we can do to not repeat that. Yeah. I think humility is important. I think it's important as a leader to recognize that we don't know everything. And that provides a few things. One, it humanizes. It's surprising to me. I didn't expect it. It's surprising to me how often people are intimidated by the role. I met with one young person who actually is helping me with my book and doing some of the research. And when she told me, she finally mentioned it to me a couple weeks ago when we met, and we first started meeting back in July. She was telling the friend, Alyssa, the friend I referred to, how nervous she was to meet. Well, he's a CEO, he's a president, he's got an MBA, he's writing a book, and in the end she goes, "Yeah, you're just a big teddy bear," like Alyssa said. Yeah. But I think that comes from that creates approachability. So that you can invite that feedback, you can invite people to give their opinions as freely as they can in order to achieve those things that you talked about.
Yeah. Allow to fail. Something that resonated with me on that is I think I allow my employees to fail and accept that easier than when I do it. Yeah. Like when I fail, bro, like I beat myself up. Like I hate and people realize that about me. They're like, "You're too hard on yourself, bro."
Well, and that's part of what why I wanted to write this book. We're always our own worst critics, and we always will be, in my opinion. We will judge ourselves more harshly than anybody else could, and it's driven by our past experiences, our view of ourselves, and oftentimes, when I used to be like that, and I'm not anymore, though I try to be, and the burden of making a mistake at this level is a lot bigger. I remember when I first accepted the role of president back in July of 20, that's something I'd always aspired to because I wanted an opportunity to lead a group of people in the way that I believed. And literally the first thought after I accepted is, oh shit, now I'm responsible for the livelihoods of 65 people.
Yeah, that's no joke.
Yeah. So I got over that fairly quickly, but that was pretty powerful for me. But going back to the beating yourself up, yeah, we giving ourselves grace is something that is tough to do.
Yeah.
Because we had set high expectations for ourselves, but we need to give ourselves grace and recognize that we're not perfect. And when we make a mistake, we own it. That's where that humility piece comes in. See what we can do to fix it and make it right and grow from it and move on.
Yeah, that's good advice. In life, in general, you don't even have to be in a position of leadership.
Oh, no.
Give yourself permission to fail.
Yeah.
Right?
And arguably, at least for me in personal experiences in my personal life, that is a harder thing to do. When I sit in my office and I have all this, I have the MBA, which is just a vehicle. It doesn't mean anything. I don't use the letters. This experience in managing global manufacturing or manufacturers selling on a global scale in my previous job, being able to do strategy, to manage HR issues. All of those things are easy because I have the experience. Not easy, but they come easier because I've built that up over the 20 plus years in my career. But then when you go home and you're sitting there and you're looking at some other things, that it becomes a little more personal, and that can be trickier.
Yeah. So since writing the book, I've been doing more public speaking, and part of my speaking, I give myself about a minute to talk about myself real quick. So I don't know. I just feel like the audience should know, right? And I have a bit of a hard time with that, talking about my credentials. And I feel like you get your MBA and you're president, CEO, and that type of thing. And when I rattle off things like, I have a medical background as a medic in the Army for 6 years, and then a doctor of chiropractic. And so that medical component carries over to risk management, especially work comp, because there's a medical component to it. And then I went in, not only became a licensed insurance agent, but a licensed work comp adjuster, a certified insurance counselor, professional work comp advisor. But I tell them, it's like, who cares? Like, all that means is I'm in a better position to help you. That's all that is, Do you kind of feel the same way?
Yeah. So oftentimes that last statement is a way to deflect.
Okay.
So like I wouldn't tell people that I'm a president or a CEO. I wouldn't say that because well, first of all, it comes with that gravity that can be challenging when you're trying to have a conversation with someone because they become instantly intimidated by that fact.
Sure. Yeah.
But to your point, all of those things are a resume, things you've done, experiences you've built, and your ability to manage tasks. That's all relevant. And there's no reason to shake that off. It's how you use those things that matter. If I was a president who talked down to all the employees, well, I wouldn't be a president for very long. At least I don't think I would. There are some out there.
Yeah, right.
But how you use that experience, how you use those tools is what matters most. So I can stand up in front of a crowd and rattle off that I have an MBA, that I'm a president, CEO. I qualify some of those things, especially the MBA part, because most of the time the audience, there's a few of them who think, okay, he just thinks he's a big shot because he's got 3 letters after his name, which for the record, I don't put them there. But I want to qualify that, and that's why I told you the story. I got my MBA not to advance my career in and of itself. It was a tool to learn and grow in order to do better at what I'm already doing. And so that's why I think those things are important, and I think you should own them and be proud of them. There's nothing wrong with being proud of what you've accomplished. The only problem is if you use it. I always say I use my powers for good, so that's what I mean by that.
Yeah, you don't want to be demeaning or like on a power trip because you've done all these things. It's more, it is what it is. This is what I've done, and now I'm going to use it to help you. My 2 biggest frustrations from leadership, from other leaders, or anybody for that matter. It doesn't even matter if you're a leader. I have a trigger point for me 100% is if one person makes somebody feel less than them, less than whatever they are, less than what they're capable of, because everybody is capable and awesome and has a ton of value, real value, not what the task they do, but who they are as people.
Mm-hmm. So that is absolutely a trigger point for me, and I'm managing it because it has it's a struggle because the injustice of it bothers me.
Yeah.
But the other side of it too is when you're looking in the mirror, you can have that same less than approach with what's looking back at you. And both of those things are important to manage. It's easier to manage the other because it's external.
Mm-hmm.
Managing the reflection is in your head. So that's what I mean when I say you have all these things that you're capable of, that you experience, your titles. As long as you don't make somebody feel less than you, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You're using your powers for good.
Okay.
That's my philosophy on it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Because, I always felt weird just saying it.
Yeah.
Like, I felt like I was always bragging, and I don't want to be a bragger.
So I used to deflect. And somebody said, well, what do you do at Mulcahy? I try to give everybody the tools to make them look good. Well, that's a BS answer. That doesn't really say what I do. It's total bullshit. So now I say I'm the president of Mulcahy, and I own it. Because the part of the reason I own it is because if somebody were to walk into that office and see the culture that's built there, I'm proud of that. Mm. We're a top 200. We're a top regional workplace with the Star Tribune. We have been since 2018. We continue to grow in engagement. Our employees are happy. We're expanding what we do for them, and that's my passion. That's what I love, because doing all those things lets all those people, all 67, 68, including me, come to work and try and do their best work, and be free to do their best work, whatever they believe is the right thing for the job. And that's what matters.
That's good. All right. So, dang, 51 minutes, bro. So we got to wrap this up.
All right.
You mentioned mentorship. Do you look to mentor people?
I enjoy doing it. I do it in my job, but
outside of Mulcahy, you work with people?
Yeah. It's just something I do in my spare time.
All right. So if somebody wants to get a hold of you as a mentor, what's the best way to do that?
Oh, well, LinkedIn is probably the best way to do it. There aren't many Rob Grady's on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
So I have a profile there.
Okay. Just message you on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
That's good enough.
Connect. Let me know that you heard about me through this podcast, because I do get a lot of LinkedIn requests.
Oh, okay.
Usually, a lot of them are pitches to sell me something.
Yeah.
So I like to accept a lot of them, but it becomes burdensome if it's noise. So if I hear that that's how they heard about me, then I'll dedefinitely engage.
Pay attention. Yeah. All right. Is there anything else we should touch on before we sign off?
I don't think so.
No?
The only thing, no.
Got it all? All right. So, again, check out their website, mulcahyco.com. That's mulcahyco.com. This is Rob Grady, the president. And thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day.
Thanks for listening to the American Made Podcast. Want to be a guest on American Made or know someone who should be? Apply online at theamericanmadepodcast.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe on your favorite podcast app to be notified when new episodes become available. And we'll see you next time on American Made.